Hi there. Well, I turn 66 later this month. I mention that because I'm going to talk about a couple things today, but I'm going to talk about aging. You know, at best, I've been very lucky so far, and I have very good health habits. So I figure I probably got 20 fairly good years left, and maybe 5 not so good years. But that's it. I've known many people, including my dear late husband, Harold Rosen, who passed away. It'll be this month, it'll be 3 years, at age 90. And his last year, it was a pretty rapid decline, even though he kept smiling. But this comes into play when we talk about the presidential candidates and their age. Because one of the things, it's not discussed very often, at least I don't hear it, they talk about their age now, but you have to think about their age pretty much 8 years from now. And one of the things that's interesting, and my friend, Harold and my friend John Rubel, he died a long time ago, a cool guy. If you ever want to look him up, it's John Rubel, R-U-B-E-L. But he pointed out something to me he had noticed. He said, if you're really, really healthy and lucky, because some of it's just luck, when you age, you do this, okay? You're pretty healthy, and then you just go downhill pretty fast. And I would say that was my husband, Harold. And that's probably a pretty good way to die, but a lot of people around our age, for some of my viewers or subscribers, it's a slower decline. So when I look at the presidential candidates, I'll get to Biden in a moment, but let's look at Donald Trump. Okay, he has some amazing genetics and personality, but it's really, I don't know what it is, genetics. But by my calculation, he's 73 now. In January 2024, when he steps down from office, because he will definitely win re-election, he'll be 77 and a half years old. Now, I think he'll be fine. He'll be good at that age. That's okay, because he hasn't reached that time of rapid decline. But you take someone like Bernie Sanders, who, despite his heart attack, appears to be in pretty good health. But, I mean, I forget how old he is right now, but it's pretty old. He'll have a rapid decline. He'll start declining. I've just seen so many people who are very healthy, people I've lost in my life. You do go down. You do go downhill cognitively, physically, and in energy level, you go down. Now, Biden is another issue. He's older, but he definitely has cognitive decline. I mean, he never was that smart. You might say, well, but he's getting good percentages in some of these surveys. But what I have noticed, and you probably have noticed the same thing, if you talk to people who aren't really paying attention to the news, and I talk to a lot of people, and sometimes politics comes up, I'm amazed at how many people just aren't paying attention. Even people who support our president, they don't really know much about impeachment, what's happening on that. They don't see, and also the mainstream media is protecting Joe Biden. So we've seen all his gaffes, but the others haven't. So when the campaign actually heats up and people really see these people in action, the age issue and health issue, it's a health issue as well as age for Joe Biden. One of the things I've noticed, which is kind of funny, not funny, but it used to be painful to watch it, but now what he's doing is he's speaking forcefully. to show that he has energy. But I don't think he understands the full implications of the things that he's saying, like talking about coal miners will code. Well, wasn't his appeal supposed to be to the working people, the working class, middle class? He's just, his actual stance is Green New Deal craziness. That's his actual stance. He's not a middle of the roader. And I'm thinking, okay, he has a staff write up stuff for him. And then he practices and he delivers it in his forceful way. Like even what he said about he wouldn't respond to a subpoena from the Democrats in the Senate, from the Senate. Well, you know, he had to walk that back because his staff and others then pointed out to him why they, what, you just decide which laws you're going to follow? There are other reasons I don't like Joe Biden, and I've talked about that in my, oh gosh, it was a year ago when I did a video, and you can check my channel and watch it. All of that still applies. And I don't want to go into this too much, but let me just say, even if I didn't know how much Hunter Biden made, I had a visceral reaction to seeing him on Air Force Two. Why was he on Air Force Two with his dad, the vice president, as he's going to these places like China? And then he uses that while he's there. So are we paying for his company? I mean, let's forget about just the awful fact that, you know, his dad is vice president and there's all this influence peddling going on. He is writing at taxpayer expense for his personal benefit. And he's writing on Air Force Two. So here's what I think was going on from Joe Biden's point of view. He's very attached to his family, but he doesn't really understand how wrong that is. So he's using his position at taxpayer expense to help his son, because he loves his son, he's trying to help his son, but that is just nepotism. That is wrong, wrong, wrong. And it's not just nepotism like a company, this is our money. So that to me is awful. But then I was thinking about something else, and especially since I've been reviewing my time at the Pentagon, and how much, when you go into a, let's say, a high-level position, how much your staff does work for you. They write you things to say, they say you should sign this, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And now, looking at someone very young, Pete Buttigieg, and very inexperienced, I think if we have a president like that, if we elect a president like that, they're just figureheads. It's just going to be run by the administrative state, by the deep state, and they'll just sign it. I had some interesting experiences, but keeping to my pledge to make these videos not too long. I'll talk about them later, but you have to really push not to do that, not to just follow the script. It is a script. So that's why Biden is saying these kinds of things that don't make sense. I mean, if he just thought it through, because he can't think it through. I don't think he has the cognitive capability. And all of this would really, really come out when people start paying attention. I mean, just run several. It's not going to happen, folks. Trump is going to win big. The only question is how big. And it'll be electoral college win. But I think he's going to get much more of the popular vote than he did before. I think there's a lot of support for him that is sub rosa. People don't talk about it so much. But there's a lot. I mean, Anyway, he's going to win. He's going to win. Okay. As for the strike, yes, I totally support the president on this. Totally. By the way, if you get a chance, I thought it was a brilliant speculation by Scott Adams in his episode 776. It was very interesting, and he was very careful to say this is speculation, but it's good. It's good. He talked about it from the point of, and his basic speculation was that maybe Khomeini wanted to get rid of this general because there's friction. Who knows? But I highly recommend, if you get it, if you are so inclined to listen to that episode 776. So a few things popped out at me. First of all, I can't think of a president I would trust more to make the right decision under these circumstances. Because our president doesn't just follow the script, what others tell him to do. I mean, of course, he's going to be influenced somewhat by that, but he's going to ask tough questions. And maybe I relate to that because I was known for asking tough questions when I worked at the Pentagon. I mean, it's much lower level than being president. But you have to do that if you're going to be smart about things. You've got to look at it. And remember, at the beginning of his administration, there were all these leaks about, oh, he asked this question, this stupid question. But it wasn't stupid. It was actually, you want to get at the heart of things, like, why are we doing this? And I really believe that President Trump wants to get the U.S. out of these endless wars. So I personally am not worried about having a war with Iran. I think he will know when to pull back in whatever's happening. I can see the people who think, oh, you know, on the other side, they don't trust him. They're like, what did he do? What's going to happen now? It's like, yeah, but he knows what he's doing. I really believe that. So he seems to have, in this case, two main operating things. He wants to get us out of endless wars, and he strikes back. You don't mess with the U.S. And I really, really like that. I've always liked that. I've always liked that kind of tough stance. And I don't like the endless wars. So another reason, amongst all the other reasons, to really support this president, at least from my standpoint. I kind of thought it was interesting that he struck at this guy when he was in Baghdad. So it wasn't even in Iranian territory. I don't know if that means anything, but it seemed kind of smart to me. And I was hearing on some program, I think it was Tucker Carlson, that the Iraqi parliament might vote to get the U.S. out of Iraq. Well, hello, that would be fabulous. Then we could leave, and we're not abandoning anybody. They don't want us there. Why should we be there? We'll go. Fine. But as far as getting the intelligence from all the, you know, and then evaluating it, President Trump is the best one to do that. Okay, I'm going to move on to another topic because, you know, one of the things I'm interested in a lot of things, but one of the things I'm really interested in is the whole climate alarmism issue, which it mutates and goes, now it's in the climate craziness mode. So I'm hoping, well, actually, here's a positive thing I think about this. I don't want to be one of these older people who goes, oh, the people today or this or that. It's like I fight really hard not to do that. Throughout history, that has always been true of the older generation. And I'm thinking, I don't want to be that way. I want to just observe, stay nimble, because things change. So this thing is kind of morphed a little bit away from just being about science and more about the world is ending, you know, kind of crazy stuff. Remember those people used to run around those signs in cartoons? The end is near, the end, and people would laugh at them. It's kind of like that. And when you're having as your figurehead, you know, kids, that's just, it's not scientists anymore. And the scientists I talk to, they're much more reasonable. I admit that a lot of them are concerned, but I have found that if you spend all your time in one area, you will blow that up in your mind. It used to be for doctors that studied, like say a cancer they saw, or a particular disease, they sort of saw that disease everywhere. Or if you're studying cybersecurity, which is an issue, of course, a big issue, you will just, that threat will just loom in your head. And that goes for any problem that you think is real and you study it. You're just like thinking about it all the time, even though there may be more serious threats in other areas. So I think that kind of goes on with the scientists, at least that I know. But they're not. But what I want to address today is the notion of scientific consensus. And to basically say that if you think there's scientific consensus, there is no scientific consensus. That immediately should be a flag that what you're talking about is science being used in ways that it's not supposed to be used. So, and I will try to put a link to this for those that want to read it because it's really good. I don't know, probably many of you know of Michael Crichton. He passed away, I think 2006. Oh, what a loss, what a loss. But he was a prolific science, he wrote science-based articles, I mean, really good thrillers, films, like Andromeda Strain, all the Jurassic Park. State of Fear is a book about the whole climate issue, and I think in his research for that, he really was he wasn't a believer in global warming, as it was called at the time, because of the things that he discovered when he looked into it. But in this paper, and he actually gave it to Caltech in January 2003, and he says, what I consider an emerging crisis in the whole enterprise of science, namely the increasingly uneasy relationship between hard science and public policy. And if you're so inclined, I really encourage you to read this. I resonated with that because I have always liked science. Actually, I've always really liked technology, building things more than science, but I like science too. So he was saying the world might not be a very good place, but science would make it better. That's what he thought. And it did. In my lifetime, science has largely fulfilled its promise. Science has been the great intellectual adventure of our age. But I did not expect science merely to do these things. I also expected science to banish the evils of human thought, prejudice, and superstition, irrational beliefs, and false fears. And now I'm not so pleased with the impact of science. Rather than serving as a cleansing force, science has in some instances been seduced by the more ancient lures of politics and publicity. Some of the demons that haunt our world in recent years are invented by scientists. So I'm skipping around here because it's long, and it's very enlightening to read it. Just some of the key paragraphs. Whenever you hear the consensus of scientists agree on something or another, the consensus of scientists agrees on something or other, reach for your wallet because you're being had. Let's be clear, the work of science has nothing whatsoever, maybe that's how I say it, to do with consensus. Consensus is the business of politics. Science, on the contrary, requires only one investigator who happens to be right, which means that he or she has results that are verifiable by reference to the real world. In science, consensus is irrelevant. What is relevant is reproducible results. The greatest scientists in history are great precisely because they broke with the consensus. There is no such thing as consensus science. If it's consensus, it isn't science. If it's science, it isn't consensus. Period. Okay, one final thing with Michael Crichton, but again, this is like several pages, really, really worth reading. Finally, I would remind you to notice where the claim of science, consensus, is invoked. Consensus is invoked only in situations where the science is not solid enough. Nobody says the consensus of scientists agree that E equals mc squared. Nobody says the consensus is that the sun is 93 miles away. It would never occur to anyone to speak that way. Oh, forgot to say, tonight, happy perihelion. I just was reminded of that. So for some of you, it would be tomorrow, but for Pacific Standard Time, I think 11:48 tonight, it's perihelion, which means the Earth is closest to the sun. And let me just do a little sidetrack here. I love about you know that seasons are caused by the Earth's tilt, so this has nothing to do with the seasons. But what it does have to do with is the Earth's orbit is mostly circular, but it's ever so slightly elliptical. So we're like 91.5 million miles from the sun right now, and apogee on July 4th, we are 94.5 million miles from the Earth. So that's a difference of about 3% in distance. So if you look at the radiation, that's distance squared. So during the winter, our winter in the northern hemisphere, perihelion, the sun is about 6% brighter. And you can notice that in the morning if you walk out and you look at the sun a certain level above the horizon, that, and compare that with that same altitude in the summer, the sun is 6% brighter. That's why you walk out sometimes on a crisp winter morning and the colors are so vibrant, especially here, because you're just getting more light. And when you get more light, colors are more vibrant. Anyway, oh, I really detoured there. But let me just go on real quick. Okay, so one of the problems with this whole consensus is that you often hear that there's a consensus of scientists, this many scientists. Well, we know that whole 97% of scientists agree. That has been debunked so many places. I don't need to do it here. But what about these organizations? Well, the one I'm most familiar with, this issue, but I also see it from, I see it from a lot of places, but the American Physical Society, which is where physicists are, they came out with a statement originally in 2007 saying, it's incontrovertible. And there were a lot of physicists that global warming was incontrovertible. Just were furious because when these organizations come out with a statement, it's not because they poll their members and say, okay, this many of our members agree. No, the members have nothing to do with it. There are activists that get to the top of these organizations and get on the committees, and then they just issue a statement. They don't ask anybody. So when you see that, the American Meteorological Society or whatever say something about global warming, that is not what the members are saying. Their members are never asked. So the people some resigned, but they really tried to get that out. They were very disgusted. And one of the people who headed up a kind of an outside group to present something to the American Physical Society was Steve Koonin. Now, Steve Koonin's a really interesting guy. I know him from when he was at Caltech. He was a physicist, a theoretical physicist. Let me tell you, physicists, they're really kind of the smartest, just in terms of sheer IQ or whatever. That's the hardest, I think, of the disciplines. I don't think I could be a physicist. I mean, that's really hard. I could be pretty much any other kind of scientist, but not a physicist. But anyway, he was at Caltech, knew him there, and he was also the provost. And as you know, the provost is the one that handles all the money. And so you're all around smart. And then he went to BP, but then he was the undersecretary for energy in the Obama administration. So I've been in touch with him. I know him. But when I really got to know him was we had my brother-in-law, Ben Rosen, kind of a very well-known guy, venture capitalist, lives back east. He's still alive, but I really don't see him now. And his wife, Donna. So Ben and Donna Rosen, they did these things called Kent Presents, which is Kent, Connecticut. They have a home there, a really amazing home. But so one of their panels was to discuss climate change. And they had a panel with Steve Koonin and Gavin Schmidt. Now, Gavin Schmidt, he's a really, we need to drain the swamp kind of guy. He is director of the NASA Goddard Institute for Space Studies, what they call NASA GISS, and co-founder of the award-winning climate science blog, Real Climate. But anyway, so Gavin Schmidt, he presented second. First Steve Koonin presented, so Harold and I, this was in August of 2015. Harold, and we were very interested in, we were so glad that this panel discussion was happening. So Steve Koonin gave a really detailed, good charts, you know, really smart presentation about basically why we don't have to worry about climate change. I mean, it was good. I can't remember all the details, but you just like, wow, this is great. I think I got a copy of his charts later and studied them. So I was very happy about that. But then Gavin Schmidt gets up. And, oh my God. I guess he just is used to talking to believers or something, because this was a pretty smart audience. Mickey Mouse charts like you wouldn't believe. I was just appalled. I mean, I really was appalled that we're paying this guy and he's going around presenting such shoddy data. I mean, really shoddy data. And I was just like, wow. So it's Gavin Schmidt. He's still there. He was appointed, I looked him up on Wikipedia. NASA named Schmidt to head GISS in June 2014. He stepped into the position left vacant after the retirement of longtime director James Hansen. And those of you who've been following, James Hansen is the original one that got this whole thing going. And then here's the other thing. During it says here, 2009, 2010, Climatic Research Unit email controversy, what we call ClimateGate, where they were saying we have to get rid of the medieval warm period, and Michael Mann, oh, he's so bad. He strongly defended the scientists involved, including Michael Mann and Phil Jones. So, I mean, he's part of that cabal, really bad. But at the time, I just knew he was head of NASA GISS. So after I just thought I'd love to tell this story. After it was finished, I was like, wow, this Gavin Schmidt. I mean, I was just stunned. But Harold, okay, he was pissed. Oh, I shouldn't use that word. He goes up to Gavin Schmidt, right to his face. And Harold, he could be a firebrand, but he's most of the time a really nice, polite person. He just looked at me. He walked right up to him and said, "You are disgrace to science." And Gavin Schmidt was like, well, I don't know what he said. Because Harold, being the brother of Ben, who was running this whole Kent Presents, we had a little status there, I guess you could say. But anyway, I love Harold for doing that. He is a disgrace to science. He is a disgrace to science. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. And then I used to subscribe to Science Magazine, and so I still get these things. And Science Magazine is put out by the American Association for the Advancement of Science. I used to, So here's this. Dear Deborah, AAS has connected more than 1,200 scientists and engineer volunteers for NGOs, that's non-governmental organizations, and underserved communities who need their help. What are they doing? Why is that important? That's the kind of work we do. That's why we need you. Every day, AAS works tirelessly to promote the value of science for the benefit of us all. No, it doesn't. We're making a real difference. And then please rejoin AAS today and get 2 free gifts. A t-shirt and a handy quilted tote bag. And they say, it's like climate change on it. So that, instead of like saying, yay science or whatever for your tote bag, it's all about spreading the alarm about climate change. Well, no thank you. I'm not subscribing to that anymore. Well, it's 32 minutes plus. It's been fun talking to you, and I appreciate you all very much. I really do. And I realize the reason I'm able to do this now, because it was random before, but I'm very good with habits. So if I say I'm going to do something on a certain day, I do it. And that's really done me well in terms of exercise and everything else. So I realized, well, nope, I can't go do anything else until I do this video. So I admit, it's 3 o'clock right now. I've procrastinated a bit today in doing this, but I knew I would do it because Saturday is when I do my video. And for some reason, there's some Saturday where I can't, well, then I'll have to do it on Sunday or do it ahead of time. But I want to post it on Saturday because that's what I do. So thank you for listening, and I really appreciate it, and I love your comments. Thanks. Bye.